Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who is unlikely to speak to Dagoth or Vivek or even Azura anytime soon.
Tim Longo. Yep. I didn't even talk to
Malfa? Malfa? I think it's Malafa or something like that.
Malafa, yeah. Because I'd lost the quest item for that.
Oh, no. I was wondering. Yeah, because you had to go poison somebody.
Yep.
And then what, did you have to steal something to we're talking about Morrowind. We'll just, drop that in there.
Yeah, Morrowind. Final episode, at least for the playthrough. He gives you some poisonous plant to use.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I sold that somewhere along the way.
Oh man, nice.
Because it's just like I sell all the alchemy stuff, and it just kind of blended in. Oh man, I hate the inventory in that game.
That was the point, man. You were supposed to blend it in.
Yeah.
It all just blended in. You were supposed to.
Yeah, it was not your best.
I'm tired. I stayed up too late playing video games over the weekend.
What were you playing? Are you playing this?
Psychonauts 2.
Oh, right. Oh, I thought you had finished that. Oh.
No, I finished it Saturday night in a marathon. So it's why I didn't stream Morrowind over the weekend. For those people who are wondering, it was because I was like, I'm just going to power through on this, and woo, I think I played 10 hours of video games in a row.
Wow.
Saturday.
Wow.
I did have a break. I roasted chicken for dinner, but so I was away for an hour or whatever. But yeah, it was a marathon.
Nice.
There was a lot more game. There's a lot more game than I thought. And then there was probably an hour where I was just cleaning up stuff. But anyway, because I had to get all the achievements like I got with the original Psychonauts, so. There you have it.
There you have it. You got to do that. Yeah.
You have to. Yes. So anyway, back to Morrowind. Yeah. So you took there's you had four bits of some weed and you were supposed to put in this guy's kettle, I think. And yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't get to do that, which I know. Yeah, you mentioned that you get to talk to the god or something if you do that. So
yeah,
I feel like and then I also figured out so I did finish the Morag Tong Grandmaster portion, or at least the initial wave to become Grandmaster. So I'm now Grandmaster, and it is neat to look in your character sheet, go to the faction. Morag Tong faction and see that there is no next step. Do you know what I mean? Like you hover over it and it just says you're the Grandmaster. Yeah. And there's no next level to get. So that's kind of, that was really the only one. If there was one goal that I was going to do before I finished, that was it. And then I did, so that was fun. But I did find out, I did look up after that at that point because it wasn't clear. Obviously, the Grandmaster, I also spared his life, and he goes away. And I talked to everyone else in the hideout, and no one had anything to say. So I did look up what you do if you want to do any of the Grandmaster quests. And so I think, which you may have found, but I think what it is each Morag Tong
Guild Hall
in each of the towns, somebody in each of those gives you
yes
Grandmaster quest. So did you do those as well?
No, I didn't do any of those. I didn't know where all the rest of the guild halls were, and I don't think the one in Balmora, or maybe I wasn't Grandmaster yet when I went to Balmora's one, because there is one in Balmora.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
But I may not have been Grandmaster yet when I went there, so it's possible that I just didn't do that in the correct order. Yeah. I have since found another one and walked into it, and I was like, "Oh, this is the Morag Tong." I'm like, "I'm already the boss of these people," and I left. So I didn't end up. I was very focused at this point on trying to get through to the end.
Well, they're each of the. I think probably what it is each of the guild halls you go to gives you one that's sort of local to take somebody out, and they're all, let's just say, important characters, pillars, leaders of some kind.
Sure.
And so it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't think you get anything special from them, so I don't know. It's just interesting that they're in there, that there's more to do, and it's not actually obvious. Like, this happens in this game all the time. It's like you hit a step and it's like something unlocked somewhere, but you're not totally sure, so if I hadn't looked it up, I wouldn't have even known those existed. Like, so it's just like, it's very much one of those games. And this definitely was a challenge of the time. And I'm kind of like mixed on whether I'm glad we're not doing this anymore or whether it's good or bad. But this is the era where it's sort of like, you need to kind of talk to everybody, to really make sure you find all the stuff to do. But it's like, there's not a good way to keep track of who you've talked to. So it's just, the scale of it is just, I mean, ridiculous.
Even with the topics, the journal has become very difficult for me.
It's pointless.
You go to the letter, N or S or something, some letter where there's, a fairly common for a number of words that start with that. And it's just pages, just of the name of the topics. And, there was one place where I had, and I don't remember what quest it was for. It might have been on the main quest, but somebody, it was for the next step of the, I think it's step 4 of the main quest at the point you're in, the fourth, whatever.
The trials.
The fourth trial, yeah. Which we'll get to in a little while. Yeah. But it was like, somebody said to me, I have a little suggestion for you. And that was the keyword. And I'm like looking through the S's because I was like, I thought he made a suggestion. And I'm like, and of course it's not in there. It's under L, And when I finally found it, because I needed to know where these people were because, but it wasn't marked in the regular journal where I thought it would be. It was,
and it's not a
so
quest.
It is part of that main quest, but it's not descriptive enough.
Yeah.
You have to get to the keywords for whatever reason. In that case, I think it's just bad cluing in all that stuff together, to the journal. I feel like it just, that stuff should have been linked up and it should have been easier to find it, but I couldn't remember the thing. And I don't know if I had a break in between. In fact, I think I did. That might be what made it even worse, And so there's that too, of just like the way we play games, versus how you might have played, if this was something you were playing in college or whatever, you could have been playing 4 hours a night. Right. And, I'm not, I'm playing a lot, but I'm not playing that much. So, it would be tough it's tough to do. I only played 11 and a half hours this week, a mere 11 and a half hours.
Well, I did put in extra time for sure because I did progress the Blades stuff quite a bit and got stuck in a couple spots that took me quite a long time to finish them. So, but I didn't catch up with you by any means. I just feel like which I also feel like I remember of this era, sort of like the concept of hyperlink quest journals or something like that was starting to become more common. And I think that generally is okay to a point, but when you're at this scale, I think like a hyperlink based journal and quest system just crushed under its own weight at this point. Like it just becomes almost useless to use. The quest list is okay, but even the quest list is sometimes hard to figure out especially if you inadvertently collected a lot of them. It's sort of like you're clicking in there and you're like, okay, where was this and who was this person? And there's everyone has a unique name, which is kind of cool, but also like there's no way you're going to remember anyone's name.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah. And and there is that just sort of general issue is that, for various reasons, both scale, but also just technology, and to some degree writing, because that one thing I would say that voice does give you, this is pursuant to something we were talking about last week in response to listener email, is that voice anchors you to a character in a way that writing often doesn't. Because unless you're actually coming up with it, you hear a voice actor, and if it's distinct, then you will remember that person just because you have a distinct thing about them, because the characters here are so similar looking in many cases, and part of that is because a lot of them are somewhat alien looking, and that makes them just naturally similar looking. The technology is not any help in that regard, because it's there's not a lot of distinguishing marks, so it's really, really hard just to even clue in to who somebody would be, unless you're seeing that person again and again and again. But even then, like, the few names I can remember in this are like Chaos Casades. I don't remember the Grandmaster's name of the Morag Tong. I've talked to him a bunch. Sul Matul is the Urshalaka, whatever camp. Ashkan. It's probably not Ashcan. It's probably Ashkan. Or Ashkan, maybe. And so it's just... Yeah. It's hard to pull, and that's out of how many characters have I met? Dozens. Some of the Fighters Guild people stood out, but I killed mostly the ones that stood out. So it's like, because it's and even all of those, I can't remember their names. I kind of have a vague idea of what their name was. So yeah, without something that really clues you into who they are and how they're distinguished from one another, it can be really tough to have a hook and to ground you in what that quest was about and where it was supposed to take you and who to report back to. So
yeah, it's wacky. And because I haven't been playing this as a just a casual player, and as we were talking about last week, Reed was friend of the podcast, was asking me if I regret not being able to sink into the game, and I knew what he meant by that. And my answer is yes, because I don't typically play these kinds of games this way. And because I'm playing this way, so as I beeline my way to the next location, which in some instances requires me to basically go overland or at least travel somewhat, right? And I'm seeing all this stuff along the way, right? That's clearly these things that have been placed there as part of just the open world fodder. Whether it's an NPC on a road who wants my help, or a bandit camp, or whatever it is, and for me, I'm just skipping all that stuff, right? I'm not allowing myself to be curious about what's going on, and kind of almost systematically take it region by region. Cause they've spent the time to name the regions. And as you travel from one region to another, text comes up and it says, the blah, blah, blah region. And just that concept is great, but for the way I'm playing it, it means nothing to me. I don't care, right? Because it's I'm fast traveling, or I'm just kind of bouncing from point A to point Z, and so it's been a weird experience for me. But
there was one point where it did connect for me, the location name, and that was as part of the main quest. I was looking for this temple to Azura. It didn't help me get there, and ultimately there was clues that I missed, and I had to go back to talk to the wise woman again and get more information. But I knew that there was a place called Azura's Coast, and so I'm like, oh, it must be there. And it sort of was, and that was kind of neat. And it was neat that I could connect those dots, but also it still wasn't, because the areas can be quite large, and there's no way to kind of, without walking around in them, to actually know where you are, where the transition's going to be. You're also kind of lost. So it's the idea's there, right? And but there's just not quite enough additional support,
Yeah.
And the manual, it's not like the manual came with this huge fold-out map or anything. I went and have looked at the materials, and there's, it's not like you can see a thing that has some additional information for you that would help ground that. And I think something like that would have actually helped to some degree. So,
is there a spell that didn't you say there's a spell that allows you to uncover the map? I feel like there was a way, there was a means to remove.
I don't know what the map, if there's any map manipulation spells in Morrowind. If they were going to be in one, it would be in this one. I do know that in Oblivion they added like the sort of give me the path to the. I think they added it in Oblivion. Give me the path to the quest I'm on, and that's in Skyrim as well, I believe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was in Morrowind, and since I haven't really. I have conjuration and alteration, mysticism, I think, are my and destruction. Those are kind of my magic stuff. I don't think those are the things that would help me. Maybe mysticism would, but I've talked to people about spells and I haven't found one where I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one I want.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to indicate what quest you're on. So. Like in later games, you can say make this my main quest, right? And, and this doesn't have that, so I'm not sure it would work.
I mean, this game feels like, which I think is not surprising that we're playing it for the podcast, because I think often this is the case for the games we are playing, because they are known for a reason. It feels like a really, really good prototype for Skyrim or something, like for them, like this is the formula that they build upon, and it's like an unpolished gem that knew that it had something going on, but didn't quite have the bring it all across the finish line. But it was like clearly something that was magical, no pun intended. So it's like. I guess all I'm saying is I'm not surprised.
It connects with a passionate audience, right? I mean, there's I mean, we're getting the emails,
it's mind blowing.
Some very detailed. It really is. They have these detailed recollections of things that happened to them in this game, that they played 20 years ago, and they can remember it quite clearly.
I will never forget the bed fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Where I, the master assassin of the Morag Tong, fought two brothers who were way above my level by jumping on a bed while they were on either side of the bed trying to kill me.
I mean, for me, there's other good moments. We can talk about the main quest a little bit. I really liked coming across the last Dwemer. I really liked
that was a surprise.
The jailbreak from the. I was telling Tim in pre-show. So there's a point where you have to get this dissident out of Vivek, and that person's been jailed, and I'm like, and I know where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be near the Hall of Wisdom or something like that, because that's where they had previously worked, and I'm like, okay, well, I know where that is, because I think I'd maybe brought them a book or something like that, or maybe I went there for a book, but I knew where to go. And then I'm there and I'm outside, and I can see on my map that there's an entrance to the jail, and I'm like, what is going on? There's nothing there. And I'm like spinning the camera around. I'm like, there's nothing here. Like, what is going on? And I step away. I don't know, step to the back end. I'm like, maybe it's down into the water, or maybe there's a stairs down. And I finally look up, and there's this huge floating rock in the sky. And I was like, what is happening? Like, it's just floating up there, which is just amazing. Like, I really liked that. That was a great moment for me. So those are two things on the main quest that happened that I was like, that was really cool. So yeah, well, there have been moments like that for me as well.
Well, and it sounds like you've been saying that the sort of ending section gets a little repetitive, which is too bad, because it's like, it should be a culmination. But
it is, but it's also the work you have to do to make it that like, I get what they're going for. So basically, you have to become the important person for 7 separate groups.
That's the riddle of the 7 curses or whatever.
Exactly. Well, no, that's the 7 curses. This is like step 4, is that the 3 houses of Vivek.
Okay. Yeah.
And the 4 houses, or the 4 Ashlander tribes all have to acclaim you as their, warrior. And they have different names. So it's the Hortator Hortator? Who knows?
The Horatio.
The Horatio of the Telvanni, Hlelu, and Redoran.
Yeah.
And then you have to be the
Nerevarine.
I guess the Nerevarine. Yeah, they have to name you Nerevarine in the 4 Ashland.
So how long are each of those steps for each of the groups?
Too long.
Oh, really? So there's like multiple steps in each of them?
Yeah, basically. So in the houses, the houses all have the same format, which is like you have to go to all the councilors, and they'll give you a book saying, that says who the councilors are and tells you where they are, and they're all in different cities. So you're like, it's sort of a final exam for the geography and like getting around to places, but it's also super repetitive to do that. Yeah. So it's like you go to the Redoran and they're like, oh yeah, you should talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. This person's never going to go for it. So you're probably going to have to kill them, and then, it's, and that's really like the pattern in all 3 of those is like, here's 3 that you need to convince and one that you'll just have to kill.
Yeah.
And the Telvanni one's kind of neat in that they're kind of, there's some neat ideas there, but the way around them for me was money. Like there was one Telvanni wizard who didn't like men. And because I have a male character, she was just not going to claim me until I gave her like 3,000 gold. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, I like you enough now to name you. So it's just like I just was buying my way out of this. And I don't know, there's probably something else to do to get past that, but that's what I did. And then kill this. But it's like going to all these different Telvanni places. And then you do that again, although you don't have to go all over the world to do the other ones. They have a couple of steps in each of the camps.
Yeah, you're not selling me on this step. This is the step I'm about to do or start.
Yeah, after you get the moon and star ring, which is a cool moment. That was another cool moment, is that you speak to Azura, who's some other god.
I'm surprised at how many gods you speak to in this game too, because I think I got spoiled reading something that you talked to Vivek too, and like
you do, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
He's basically the last step before you go to Dagathur.
Yeah.
But so then I went to become the Nerevarine from all these ones, and those were mostly fine. There was one I thought I was going to get off pretty easy, and it was like, oh no, you have to, this guy's like, I'm not going to call you that. You have to prove that you're strong enough to be our warrior. There's one I liked, actually, and we'll get back to that in a second. But this one was, okay, well, you have to prove yourself strong enough. Go kill this vampire. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can kill the vampire. No big deal. And I go and I kill the vampire. I come back, and he's like, you know what? I'd also like a bride. A fine Telvanni woman. I'm like, what? I'm like, and so you go to the wise woman, and she's like, well, what you should do is go buy a slave.
Oh.
Yep. And get some good clothes for that slave.
Oh, wow.
And some Telvanni bug musk, which you've been probably seeing, throughout the game, which is basically just perfume. And yep, that was the thing I had to do.
Yikes.
In fact, that was the first time I broke the prophecy. She died. I was trying to bring her back to the boat, and I walked off a cliff, and so we're in the water, and then she got far behind me, and I don't know, a fish ate her or something, so I had to reload and redo that part. So yeah, that was a bit much.
And you think that's the only way to do it, huh?
Yeah, I think it is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't look it up, but I think it's a through line.
Some of the prophecy itself, like one thing I've been impressed with is just, it's the main quest. If you take it from start to finish, at least even what I've done up to this point, and it sounds like it keeps getting more elaborate. Like it is elaborate, like like the prophecy and like all the different religious implications and even political implications. The thing I kind of like about the 4 tribes and the 3 houses is that it really integrates the factional groups in the world into the fiction of the main quest. Like you get to because you have to go and interact with each of the 3 houses. Like I've spent so much time in Vivek that I know the 3 houses, right? But I don't know them, know them.
Right.
And so it's kind of neat that, I can imagine myself, whether I do it or not, I can imagine myself going back there and like really like, oh, that's who these people are, you know, and they look at me differently. I'm not just this random person walking through their buildings. You know, I'm actually, I'm there on a
mission.
Thing
is, though, even those are spread out throughout the world. So it's like they're not all just in Vivek. So it's like, well, you have to talk to this person, and they're in Sadrith Mora, and you have to go to this place, and you're going to have to go up into the tower. You know, you have to go to Tel Voss, and you have to, like the Telvanni were the biggest pain in the neck because they're all wizards. So like you have to levitate. Like it wouldn't be a problem for you. But for me, it was like, I was like buying potions, and those aren't easy to find. And I probably could have, if I'd gone around the world a whole bunch, I probably could have found somebody who would teach me levitate, but I didn't have that. I didn't know where to find it. I mean, but I could have spent time going through all the mage guilds and finding it. Like I'm sure one of them will teach you that. But it was like that. It was just like, okay, well now I've got to try to have enough resources to get. So there was just and part of it is at this point I'd already played 90 hours or whatever and was like, okay, I'm ready to be done. It was like, I think it was Sam who sent email and said, yeah, I just got to the point where I'm ready to be done. And I was like, oh, I have all this other stuff to do. He was referring to The Witcher 3. And that sort of happened here. I was like, oh, wow, this is way more stuff than I realized.
Yeah.
At this point. So
just the main quest is a full game.
Yeah.
And you did almost all the factions as well.
I did several factions. Each of the houses is also a faction.
Yeah, but I bet you that one's not as elaborate as like the Fighters Guild, but
maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not well to
like
say so now.
Regardless of the houses all being in Vivek or not, it even reinforces my point even more to know that they actually tell you to go to other places, because then it sort of shows that these houses are spread throughout the land, and they're not just concentrated in the city. And so I don't know. It's just like it's so intertwined and like. And then there's the whole like disease corpus thing that happens, which is like super interesting. And then after the jailbreak, there's the monastery that you have to go out and you feel very incognito, getting this special boat that only you are taking. And then you got to wait for the sunset or the sunrise. And you go in there and like, there's these monks hiding in this crazy place, and it feels, I don't know. It's like it's a lot and probably too much, but it's so elaborate and so intricate. And like there was times when I was skimming some of the text too, because I'm like, oh man, just exposition overload on what the hell's going on here. But I still could appreciate like the thoughtfulness put into it, and it's just further reinforces the obsession people have with this particular one. Because it's like, wow, this goes places. This is a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's, the sort of maximal values, right, that are still in evidence, right, of like just make a ton of stuff so that you can have whatever experience you want to have, right? And that's definitely here. I mean, I think the main quests tend to be, pretty substantial, and if you just played the main quest, you might be like, yeah, that was really cool. You probably also in general need to play maybe one faction house or a bit of one just to get the sort of rewards and get some better armor and whatever, but or better magic and have some contacts, get some stuff. The chests finally refilled for me in the Mages Guild, so I could get some more I don't know, soul gems or something if I wanted to. I have like 8 full grand soul gems at this point that are all worth tons and tons of money, but I can't use them on anything.
What do you use soul gems again? Is that enchanting?
Enchanting, yeah. Yeah, I went to try to enchant my Daedric longsword, and there are so many factors. And I'm sure my enchanting level is probably too low as well, and so that some of these things but I didn't grok the whole thing at once. So you can pick your spell effect and like how it applies. So let's say you're like, I want this to heal 65 hit points for 3 seconds. So every second it'll, heal you another, 65 to 70 or something like that. And that'll cost like 60,000 gold pieces. But in the end, there's also a little number up in the corner of the dialogue, which is like how much magic this how much enchantment the weapon can actually absorb, and it's nothing. So it's like, oh, it would have to absorb 1,700 points of enchantment, but it only can absorb 12. And I'm like, well, I could make a Daedric sword of like, making you have a splinter. Like, I don't like 12, it's so, and I don't know if
it's a balancing thing.
And I don't know if that number goes up if my enchanting goes up. I suspect that it does, like that I could do more enchanting if my enchantment skill was much higher, but at this point I'm not interested in investigating that any further. But I did kind of do it twice. The second time I was like, oh, let me try this again, because the first time I did it I was streaming and I didn't really even understand why it didn't work. So I'm like, I guess that's a thing I'll never do again. But this time I was like, okay, I'm going to try to figure out what's the deal with the enchantments. And I just took one and tried to enchant a thing on my person, because I am an enchanter in theory. And I did all of that, and I realized that number was up there, and it's like it can't accept more. You can't put more enchantment on a thing that it can absorb or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I like dragged it all the way down to something a lot smaller, and then it failed. And it burned this old gem, and I'm like, okay. Well, the second time didn't go much better than the first. I think I'm done with the enchanting system. So I know that's a super powerful thing to do. Like, I know that's a very unbalanced part of the game if you invest a ton into it. As many things are, right? But I just
holy cow, that's crazy.
I was done at that point. So
well,
okay.
Yeah, it's so funny because enchanting, it's always one of those systems. Like, it's just the same way in many MMOs. Like, enchanting is always super hard to do and progress in. But yeah, I guess it's just a trope.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty. And alchemy is the other one. Like, I really usually love doing alchemy in games like this, and I also regret not committing, because actually alchemy I think is one of my it's at least a poisons, secondary
probably. A minor
and so I do regret not investing in that. But that, the alchemy systems typically are similar. It's like you just a deep hole of mastering that. I do like potions. I wish I could make more of them, but again, I did dabble with it a little bit, and there seems to be quite complex as well, as far as like what you can mix together and how, what kinds of combos you want to do, and like all this sort of crazy stuff that just seems so malleable and just insane. This is like a 400-hour game if you try to really go through everything. But my regrets, some of my big regrets, like I didn't get to take out the Dark Brotherhood, which I really am bummed about. Like, I was doing the third trial, where you're going to get the shield and the corpus, the zombie skin and the cup. It's like, well, those are the three most random things I've ever had anybody ask me to get. This shield, this zombies, and then this. I don't even think he explained why he wanted those three things, but anyway, so I'm down in this dungeon on the main quest, and I sleep in a Dark Brotherhood in the middle of this dungeon, that technically nobody else is really supposed to be in. And he's just like, I'm gonna blah, 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 like, come on. So I never got to
these guys again.
Yeah.
So you never got to go to Mournhold.
I never went to the Imperial. Yeah, that's an Imperial City, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's wild. So I don't know why I had to do that and you didn't.
Well,
maybe it was optional.
It is.
Maybe
optional.
it was not.
It
must
optional.
be optional.
No, you get the. I have the quest. I have the quest to go.
Oh, okay, you do have the quest.
I have the quest to go to Ebonheart.
Yeah, you have to go to Ebonheart to get the person who would teleport you there.
Yeah. So I have that quest. I just haven't done it.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that so as part of the Morag Tong Grand Mastership, I had to kill the Night Mother of the Dark Brotherhood in that one dungeon, which was super fun, to delve into that, and it felt really neat. And it was a pretty hard fight for me. Of course, I used all my cheesy tactics to achieve my goals, but yeah, so I kind of felt like I did definitely get one over on the Dark Brotherhood by doing that, by taking out that character. But it, there's still they're still active. I don't know if so. In that quest, if you go and do that quest, are they no longer active? Do they like they're gone? Or?
They didn't come after me at all. I don't think after I killed off the dude who was in Mournhold. So I don't know what will happen with you, because I think that's the thing but it might be either way. I was actually wondering if the Night Mother in Skyrim is the same Night Mother from
Morrowind.
From Morrowind.
Well, I
don't know.
I was kind of thinking the Night Mother might be more of a rank for them, and that there also is the god that is the Night Mother. And I'm wondering if they just call. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a different one. I think the Night Mother Magia and the Morrowind.
Yeah.
She's the wife of Sithis. Yeah, I guess it's not.
I think it's like more of a title.
No. Yeah.
For the right. humanoid, and that they named the title after because the Night Mother's a god, right, or something, or like a deity.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. it's a corpse in Skyrim, So
yeah. I just like, and then the other thing is like the commitment to books. Like, I guess I just didn't. I always heard that, and of course I've started this game multiple times. I even had the strategy guide because it felt like like you said earlier, the manual just didn't cut it. I have long since gotten rid of that, but so I knew intellectually that the books was like a thing, but like going through the game this time, never fully underestimated how much the books are a thing. Like
they're definitely a thing.
Impressive. Yeah.
Yep. It was a thing that at a certain point it's just like, okay, anybody else want to write a book? It's just like, so there's all kinds of, and that's why they have so many different voices, right? It's written by a whole bunch of people on the team. It's not like one person writes all the books.
Yeah.
It's like literally anybody who wants to write a book can write a book. So that's why there's, 1,000 of them or whatever. And they just keep getting added to, right? Because they just keep the old ones and just put them back in. Like how many times do you have to rewrite the Lusty Argonian Maid? It's a known story.
Well, there's adaptations and translations,
that's true. Right. The playwright goes back and reworks their original work, and they're like, I want to work through. I didn't come off lusty enough, really. And anyway,
yeah.
So I didn't finish talking about the other thing I did like about the Ashlander quest. There was one where, unfortunately, I basically had to kill a bunch of Ashlanders in this one camp. Because the wise woman's like, oh yeah, they'll never accept you. You're going to have to kill this person, this person, this person, and this person. But then, and she's like, and then you need to get this other person to become chief. And you go talk to that person. They're like, I don't want to be chief. I could never live up to that. And what you have to do is take the artifacts off of the bodies of the people, the 4 that you have to kill, that are like the hereditary axe of the clan and the hereditary armor of the clan and whatever, and present them to this guy. And then those things remind him of what the tribe means and, what its beliefs are. And he decides to step into basically his father's shoes. His father was the old chief who's deceased now, I guess. So that was kind of a cool one of just like doing something different with the loot. Which I kind of like, because they were all things where you were like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool to have. Like, that's a pretty decent axe or whatever. There was some decent armor. And I was like, oh, that's cool, But you have to hand them over, right? As a like, no, here, remember who you are, and grow into these relics or whatever. So that was a pretty neat one. That one cleaned the taste out a little bit of the preceding one for me.
So. Wow. Yeah. That's what I was going to say earlier about some of the prophecy stuff in the books you get from them when they start revealing the teachings, or they I don't know. They talk about the invaders right? And
Mm-hmm.
the basically trying to return all the tribes to their rightful position, and they might even talk about like race in there as well somehow. I think they do. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, it's a little rough on sort of how cavalier, not to use that word again, but they're kind of throwing these concepts around.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different era in terms of how we game developers thought about any of that stuff, right? I mean, I still think that is one of the things that this really shows about its sort of origins and homebrew campaigns. It definitely feels like, hey, we just threw this stuff. I mean, you look back at, I mean, D&D's got its, still dealing with its kind of baggage that it's been carrying forward from generation to generation. But you look back at some of the older editions and like the settings and things, it's like, oh, this is straight up like Mayan / Aztec / Incan appropriation, just straight up, like Mazatlan or whatever it was called. You're just like, oh yeah, they're just saying, they're just taking all this cultural stuff and throwing it in a blender, and making it a setting. And there've been other ones as well that have been very similar that way. So it kind of comes from that history as well, which is just to say, hey, white men, we all need to do better. I mean, it's just like we should not just assume we can just play with this stuff in the way that we have, and and treat it as if it doesn't have some meaning of its own. Not to mention colonial issues, but which are a whole separate thing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just didn't see it, the depth of it coming. I mean, it's sort of there's also a sense of like, there's a lot of opinions or something, right? Like, or there's a lot of commentary. Whatever you think of the commentary, there's more going on in the quests and the social structures and the political structures and everything that, if you were to kind of map it all out, like Vardenfell is that how you say it? Vardenfell? Yeah,
Vardenfell.
Vardenfell is, it's a pretty, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of layers to it. A simple, I thought fun, I don't remember what his lines were exactly, but one simple, small example is when you finally get to the point in the Blades where Cassius is basically like, I got to go back. I've been called back. I've been recalled. There's been some controversy or something, he says, like politics are involved and I got to go. He leaves you his clothes and his ring. I was like, well, you're now the highest ranking official of the Blades on this continent, or on this island, so you're it. And that, like, super weird way for a main character to like leave, but it's also a little.
And it's because he's a drug addict in part.
Yeah, it felt like that.
He's got a sweet tooth. Yeah,
yeah. He mentions the sugar, and it's like, and it's like, that's pretty original. Like that's interesting. Yeah. Like that's crazy. So. I definitely appreciated that moment. And so there's just like this moment where I'm looking at my inventory and I see his clothes in there, and I'm like,
his shirt and his pants and shoes.
Cassius, where did you go so wrong? I thought,
I've used that ring a number of times because I think it increases your security. So it's places where
it is,
where I can't, and your security is probably quite high. But for me, I was like, I would go and try to open a door. And it's like, even with a Grandmaster pick, it's, I don't have enough. And so I flip that ring on, and it's like, okay, now I got 20 more points. It's just enough for me to, I'll jiggle the pick a long time, but it's still, it's enough to get me there. So I've been carrying that around for a long time. I have so much stuff. I can carry 500 pounds of stuff, and I'm like always at 489 or, 493 or something.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the end of the game, and it's like I have to pick up this massive hammer. I've got 2 daggers. I've got my wizard staff. I've got a bow. I've got 2 swords. I've started to drop the glass armor I was also carrying around because I needed to make space. It's just I got all this stuff.
Yeah, you're just throwing glass armor on the ground like we're
just leaving it. Oh yeah, this glass cuirass.
20,000.
It's 20,000 gold pieces or whatever. But who am I going to sell it to? really.
Yeah, the economy in the game is super weird in that regard, because I wonder what kind of math they did to sort of balance it out. Assuming there's got to be sort of a zero sum. I don't know if that's the right term.
Oh, don't assume that.
No?
Don't assume. Yeah, no.
So how? But they have to. I mean, it's a finite game. They have to know how many items are in the game and how much gold. No, I guess because
how finite is it if things can respawn?
Can they respawn?
They can. Yeah, there are enemies that will spawn.
Oh,
you would go back to a Daedric. If you go back to a Daedric ruin or something like that, or temple rather, after some
it all
period
respawns?
of time has passed. Not. It's sort of, they come from tables, so it won't be the same things.
Okay. Yeah. And I forgot, actually, after a certain amount of time, the vendors have more money too. So
they will regain.
It's just
money.
so weird to me though that there's these items that nobody can buy because they're just too expensive. Like, why do you? What's the point of that? Like, I don't know. It's just weird to me.
I think
because it makes items
to make you.
Right? It makes items less. It makes you, the fact that you just throw glass armor on the ground because you can't do anything else with it. It's like it feels like you're breaking some rule to me on an RPG rule with that. But whatever. I mean, at least be able to break it down into some materials or something you can do something else with.
Well, let me tell you about a little game called Fallout 4.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just
That's the deal. Like crafting.
These are the sorts of things that happen, right? Is that over time they become more, they just add more depth to everything.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of these games, right, there's tons of loot that's, you can sell it for small amounts, but after your, 5th level, it's like, why would I ever pick up anything that's not worth, 100 gold? And then your scale just starts changing, right? I have a soul gem that's worth 80,000 gold pieces.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I don't remember what it was, but it was, I like a golden saint or something like that. Because when I finished the Wizards Guild, I both got the staff, but I also got this dagger that does the trap soul, and it's very high. So if I kill something, if I use that dagger on something before it dies, it's got soul trap for 60 seconds, which is how you trap things into the gems. And if you have an empty gem, it just goes in there. And I was carrying around 7 or 8, grand soul gems for a while. I mean, I still have them all. And so once I did that and I killed a rat, so I have a grand soul gem with a rat in it. I've got, but then I'm like, oh, I shouldn't use this thing on, I should use this on, cool stuff. So I've got an ancestor ghost in there, which was, something I summoned. I have, a golden saint, and I have probably some Atronax and stuff like that. I don't remember what all the things I have are. They're all different.
But what do you do with them?
That's what you use to feed the enchanting.
And depending on what's in the soul gem is what is enchanted. It's enchanted with.
No, it's just powering it.
So it's like a higher level thing makes.
It's like a resource it's like a special resource that you need to craft enchanted items. It's super complicated.
I mean,
and it doesn't make the things any more having a really good grand soul gem means you could craft better stuff, but not if not in my case, where I can't really put any more into my Daedric weapon or whatever. That might be a Daedric thing. I don't know. There's stuff like that where I'm just I don't know enough about those systems to know what's going on. And it would take a lot of experimenting and understanding, and stuff like that. So,
I mean, this is MMO level systems.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's now I blame Morrowind for MMO design, because I feel like it's there's just so much that it's almost like, I know it's not intentional.
I will say Meridian 59 came out before Morrowind.
Fair enough.
So did Ultima, and
no, I know. Ultima, we Ultima Online being the muds, whatever. There's plenty of examples, but I'm just saying this. Though a single player game and a boxed product where you pay and you're done, it feels grindy almost, right?
If you want to play it that way. But again, like I said a few weeks ago, I could see somebody just taking this down once a year and playing a different quest line and being like, yep, okay, I've done another 15 hours of Morrowind, and now I'm going to put it away again. True. And I really think it's possible to play that way and really enjoy it. and gets and have a long life with the game that you could really enjoy. We don't play, nobody plays games that way, really. I mean, I say nobody, I'm sure there are people who do, but it's more like that's not the culture around games. It's never been the culture around games. It's always like, what's the new thing? Play the new thing. I don't really do that. I mean, for me to play Psychonauts 2 within 6 months of it coming out shows you how much I was excited to play Psychonauts 2. If it weren't for the podcast, there's a lot of modern games I would not have played. I wouldn't have played Village for years. I would have gotten around to it maybe eventually. I wouldn't have played it, so soon after its release. So that's just been a change in me over the years. But so it is really strange in that regard that you're going to get this game. You can play this game as much as you want. We have definitely got some emails we'll get to next week where it's like, yep, I dragged out my copy of the game. I loaded up, still had the save. I was 74th level, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we get letters from time to time of people who say they play a game annually, right? Like we got that with Chrono Trigger or whatever it is. And I could, especially if you have a save game, like this is a perfect game for that because there's just so much there. You could probably be playing this game for 10 years and still discover things that you hadn't found before,
Oh yeah.
And that's just
I could
wacky.
I could start this game over and have a very different experience.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then there's the other thing that I actually kind of regret now that I've played whatever 35 hours that I played, that I forgot that there's actually you can make your own class. In there, and I was thinking, now that I know more about the game and the systems, like I would go back in and I would make a specific kind of assassin, if I had that. I assume you can pick your majors and your minors in that. I think process.
So, yeah.
So,
yep.
So yeah, so it's just
I just picked Battle Mage because I was like, that sounds cool.
That
was enough for me. I don't tend to spend a lot of time on those things anymore. Not like I used to. I used to spend a lot of time re-rolling characters to get the perfect character in, like a gold box game. So you just roll and roll and roll till you get, characters with insane stats. And I don't have the patience anymore. I usually pick an off-the-shelf face, in a character creator. Like, oh, here they've got 12 faces. I'll pick one of those, or even randomize. Just be like, I'll hit randomize a few times until I'm like, oh yeah, that one's all right. I do not go deep trying to customize and make them fit me anymore. It just doesn't fit my life. So, anyway, all right. Well. I think we touched on everything we meant to touch on this week.
I guess Dagoth is going to prevail
in your world.
Well, no. I mean, are you going to go back and?
I will finish it. I am that close. I'm less than 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one of the 2 artifacts I need. I'm just trying to find my way into the other place I have to go to get the second artifact, and then I go kill Dagoth. But they're all kind of close together.
Yeah. So you're in the Red Mountain right now.
Oh, I'm in I've been in there for the last several hours. So
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's actually it's really hard to find your way around up there and make it to the places. There's like these high bridges and you've seen some of those like rope bridges and things like that. They're used, but now like sand's blowing all the time, so it's really hard to see, or ash, I guess it's supposed to be. So it's really hard to see where to go, and so there are paths and stuff, but there's a lot of them, and so I was trying to get to a place for the longest time, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give up trying to get to this place. I can't climb up this way. I can't climb up that way. I don't know which way to go. I'm going to go find the other place. So I went and did that instead. And I was glad I did because I got one of the things. And then I started making my way back. So it is wild.
In Skyrim because that's like up in the Nordic sort of like Viking kind of thing, right? Is the theme around that so specific to Vikings that, like, I mean, is the class creation as open as it is in this game, in that you don't have to be a Viking to play, to
Oh, you can be
whatever.
You can be any of the races here. So you can be a Nord,
But
you're
then
always
are
an
you
outlander
becoming
and imprisoned.
Are you becoming a Viking though? Even if you're a different race?
No.
Okay.
It's all the things you can do here.
Okay.
But it's even looser. Like, you don't have to be a class at all. You just have the skills. And then the signs, the signs like the Atronach and whatever sign you picked, are actually stones in the world that you can go and just like worship at. And now you're that sign, and you can switch them, just by doing another one. Like, so if you know where they are, you can, I think you can even fast travel to those. So you could just like fast travel to the one you want and have that sign, for the next however long you want to have it, and then fast travel to a different one, and get that one. Wow. It does, like, it smooths all that stuff out. And all the skills have skill trees with feats in them. So, instead of your daggers just getting better and doing more damage, you'll get like, now you can use 2 daggers, now you can, I don't know what they are. Now you can do an insta kill if you can do it, from behind or whatever. And, and all of those things are shaped like the constellations in the sky. So it is just, it's just as flexible. You can go and become a smith, like, and make that one of your things, where it's like you go and you get ingredients around the world and you do blacksmithing. And you can get better and better at blacksmithing, so you can make dragon bone armor. And, that's the only way to get that. And it just, and it's just plus. So
yeah, the and game, the everything game.
Yep. They saw Dungeons and Dragons and they thought, you know what nobody really focuses on? The and.
Yeah.
And with that, let's turn to some email. Next week we will do our takeaways, and we'll do a big mailbag rather, and catch up. But we're going to do a couple, get a little bit of a jump on it this week. We have a few minutes here before you're supposed to start playing your game. So why don't you go ahead and hit that first one?
Okay, subject, lore as a driving force, and Brett. From Artemis, which is a frequent Twitch viewer for my stream. So thanks for coming on there. Hey devs, just a heads up, I'm typing this from my phone because my living situation stability is lacking. So please accept my apology for anything that doesn't fit that I didn't notice. Do your best to interpret where necessary. Thanks for your patience. All right, the meat of this mail, which you'll probably read halfway through the third game after Morrowind, based on your email progression. Okay, funny. Maybe make time once in a while for the emails bonus episode, which Brett just said. So we're going to try to do that. Yeah. Wait, I thought I said the meat. No, okay, not the snide commentary. Yeah, you did, sir. We all know per his own admission, Brett is not a player to invest in lore. How does this affect your enjoyment of games like Morrowind that are so dependent on it for a player to understand the world they're in, to craft their own story like the Elder Scrolls games? Clearly, this isn't the first game you've played on the cast that has this kind of focus. Forgotten Realms with Baldur's Gate, the post-nuclear United States of Fallout, the deep incomprehensibility of Kingdom Hearts that we need another update from Brett on, by the way. But I'd say it's certainly one where the world and its lore are more a driving force to understanding and enjoyment than many of these others by the notable margin. More than many of those margin. Though if you disagree, I'd love to hear why. Now, I'm not someone who invests in many outside the game's deep dives, lest it's a property I'm somehow otherwise invested in, with some few exceptions like Mass Effect as an example. And so what the game presents can be enough for me, and typically is. Is it similar for yourself, or are there other driving factors you find? Please find a way to include Tim in this beyond simply reading it out. I'd love for him to feel excluded. I would hate for him to feel excluded. I'm sure he has great thoughts on the lore as motivation. Look forward to hearing this read in 3 months. Whoa, somebody's a joker today.
Yeah, I tell you.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, so take it away. What's how are you going to approach this one, lore master?
Yeah, I mean, the lore stuff, right? So I like that things are motivated, but it only matters to me if that motivation comes through to the game. So, having just played Psychonauts 2, that entire game is motivated by the history of the characters in the game, and in a lot of ways, that you're trying to repair all this damage from the past, right? That's kind of Psychonauts' thing, right? The original and the sequel, and I only care to the degree that actually impacts how, when I'm playing the game. If I have to go read something about why I should care, I don't care, right? I mean, it has taken it to like, oh, you have to do this other thing. You have to do this other activity to care, about the activity you're pursuing. I sat down to play a game. I love to read when I'm reading. But if I'm sitting down to play a game, I just am not really interested in all that background material. When it starts to come through to the game that I'm actually playing, and I'm actually seeing it in the game that I'm playing, I enjoy it a lot more. But I'm also still at that point not going to seek out more of it. I just want to see the part that actually surfaces to me through the play and through the narrative experience. I love narrative games. I just don't love lore. Like, the idea to me that the games have like novelizations that have all this extra stuff, in the world beyond, I just like, my eyes just glaze over to even think about it. And I've never been that person who, I wasn't a lore person for Star Wars. Like, I liked the movies, right? I worked I worked at LucasArts, and I made games that were effectively, in some ways tied into, I guess, lore, right? In some sense, there was all backstory and extended universe type stuff. But if it wasn't on the screen in what I was doing moment to moment, I have trouble caring. Because I don't think it's not what we do well. Like, we might have good writers, but it is not a good way to present writing, So, I don't know. I just have a hard time getting excited about it. Somebody asked me about Mass Effect specifically recently, and like, oh yeah, don't you read all the encyclopedia, or whatever it's called in there, entries? I'm like, no, absolutely not. In no way do I spend time reading those things. I don't want to know.
So an example for you would be something like Psychonauts, where it's more integrated, and you do.
It's all right there in what I'm playing. I'm seeing it as a narrative
at that point.
Yeah,
it's not really world building.
I mean, it is world building, but it's all, I'm gonna encounter it all. I don't have to go and pop open a screen of stuff to read to have the world building. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's you can see it. You can just literally see the world building on the screen. And a lot of that I really liked in Morrowind. We talked about the different architectures and stuff like that. Like, I can see that there are mixes of cultures or houses, I guess it turned out to be, and I can actually see and appreciate that in the world. And I like that. I like that kind of depth and interest. I love the Dwemer stuff, like I mentioned in Skyrim, like coming across that, because I think it happens a bit later in the game. So you're like, you've been seeing all these caves and the Nordic stuff, like thick carved, stone and stuff like that with runes, that sort of vibe. And then you come across these like brass steampunk stuff, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. If I had read in a book that there were Dwemer, that would not have like helped me at all envision what it was going to actually be like to encounter it. And it wouldn't have really enticed me. I don't know. I'm just, yeah.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, you are describing different ways my interpretation is I feel like you're describing different ways to present lore. essentially,
Yeah.
or fiction, and some
and
some work with
the
3D
lore
better than
yeah.
others.
Yes.
Because the cheapest way to include lore is things like the compendium and those sort, or books, that you read separately or whatever. But that's not necessarily the best way to do it. It's just like a way that has surfaced. For time's sake, I won't go into my side of it, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you answered his question.
There we go. And we've been playing this game for 3 months, so I guess we are 3 months in. But anyway, I will be quick here because I think this is mostly descriptive and not questions. This is again from Ashton Herman. We heard from once before. This subject is vampires and the hidden factions of Morrowind. Hey, Brett and Tim. I couldn't resist writing a second time during your Morrowind series, and I wanted to chime in on one or two of the more obscure discoveries to be found in the game because I don't know how likely it is for a player to come across them if they don't know what to look for. Tim mentioned finding a vampire cave, and I wondered if it was possible he stumbled upon one of the 3 clan houses in the game. Back when I first played Morrowind, I thought it would be cool to see what it was like, what life was like as a vampire. Vampires get incredible bonuses to their stats, but NPCs refuse to talk to them, with the exception of certain Mages Guild members who will tolerate you out of professional curiosity. That means that fast traveling is largely off the table, which is a real bummer when the sun saps at your health constantly. However, with a lot of reading and maybe some help from the official guide, in my case anyway, you can find a clan hall where your vampire brothers and sisters reside. There are 3 clans in the game, effectively 3 hidden factions, and the clan you belong to is determined by the clan of the vampire who infected you.
Wow.
Raise up through the ranks of your clan, and you're given the privileges like the option to feed on the NPC prisoners they keep in their holds like cattle. I won't go into the exhaustive detail, but you can read all about them at the wiki. And there's a link here. There's also a quest in the game to cure vampirism. It requires a lot of travel, largely by foot, and it's probably the most challenging thing I ever did in the game. I saw it through once, but never again. I also wanted to chime in on the index and pylons that Tim found. They're actually another obscure and of dubious value fast travel mechanic. Oh, interesting. And Bethesda released an official plugin for the game that implements a quest to find all the indices. Looks like that plugin's now included with the GOG copy of the game by default, but you can also download it at the wiki if you feel inclined at our Steam or Game Pass. Oh, that's interesting. So it's not included. You guys are great, and the series has been a real treat for me. Thanks. Thank you, Ashton. It's been fun to delve into this for so many weeks.
Wow, that vampire thing is wild. That's just like another thing of like, that's really in the game? That's insane. That is just completely insane. This is the game. This is, I think you made the joke before, but this is one of those games where they just said yes to everything. They didn't say no to anything. It's like, what? But I mean, it comes with some of parts caveats, right? It's like, they did, but it's
for sure. All right, those were sent, of course, to devgameclub@gmail.com. We also love to get your reviews. Mystery Dip, I promise, next week.
That's. You think you said that last week?
I might have said it the week before too. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub, where you can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
Where you can also find him streaming at twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr. in just mere moments as we start. You are probably getting towards the end of Resident Evil 8.
I might be finishing tonight, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah. Heisenberg is in my sights.
Yes, Heisenberg.
But I don't know who Mother Miranda, I haven't met Mother. I assume Mother Miranda will be the final boss, but I don't know. We'll see. I have theories.
Yeah.
I have theories that are on record, so we'll see if I'm right. But
has any more of that storybook stuff kind of come through?
No, I'm surprised.
Super bummed.
I kind of indirectly, because the storybook covers, the kind of the bosses, right? Like the main characters, sort of, in an abstract storybook way. So you're kind of fulfilling what the storybook is saying. But actually, I should go back and watch that because I don't remember all the details. But Yeah, but no, the style, there hasn't been a storybook or a style like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Which is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. There's a Psychonauts 2 level. It takes place in books. Oh, so good. Anyway, and I occasionally have been streaming as well at twitch.tv/BrettDuville. No underscore there. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo is by Mark Garcia. Have fun reading all the books of lore this week, and good night.
Good night.